Welcome to the Stash Cast, where innovation meets real estate. Let's dive in.
Logan, thank you so much for coming to join me today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of opportunities to connect over the years and recently. And when you scheduled the booking, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm looking forward to it. For those that haven't had the pleasure of connecting with you yet, why don't you give us an idea of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I know that the last time we connected, it was like 4 or 5 months ago. So it took me a while to get booked up, but it's because we've been busy, and we've been busy advising on our own portfolio of commercial real estate here in Kansas City, but also, man, I'll tell you, the thaw that has needed to happen for quite some time has started in commercial real estate. And so many owners are wondering, is it a good time to sell? Do I need to refinance? I hear about all these headlines. How do I position myself going into 2026? And so that's what I've been obsessed with, frankly, is understanding. And if somebody gives me the idea, when you ask them, how's commercial real estate doing? They say, it seems like it's getting a little busier. I don't answer like that. I ask questions, but then I give you an answer with statistics, not adjectives. And that was from one of my mentors, Bob Knackle, in the industry. Always respond with statistics. And so I had him on my show probably a year and a half ago, and it just stuck with me. You have to know your market. You have to know your numbers. And he could recite all of these figures about his market. So I took that to heart, and I said, I need to figure out how to deliver that type of market intel on a regular basis for 2 reasons. We own and operate 1,500 multifamily units here in Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri, as well as 600,000 square feet of commercial space. That is 5 shopping centers, neighborhood retail shopping centers, 1 sizable industrial property that's around 250,000 square feet, and 1 office building. And we're working on about 400,000 square feet of ground up small bay industrial projects here in Kansas City. And so I was like, I need to know this information to see where we should be going with our own portfolio. The secondhand effects of that is, hey, I'm a real estate broker as well, and we have a team that is talking with owners on a regular basis, and we have this digital marketing and social media platform that we can now disseminate and get information out to 35, 50, 100,000 people. We're getting content impressions of 100,000 impressions per week right now. And so when you look at that, it's okay, now you're in a position to actually need to know what you are saying. There's a level of responsibility with that. And I take that pretty seriously. You throw the influence and the confluence of artificial intelligence in there that allows me to employ super agents to go find and aggregate all of these market reports and then give me the inferences that I need to know to help ourselves and our clients make decisions. Now you're truly in this position of advising, and you have this information and these ideas backed by data that can actually help people. And that is exciting to me, because if you can cut through the noise, which everybody used to think that we had, and we had information asymmetry, where the information was held by one group of people, that maybe they had the information because they had more money, or they had more insights because they had a bigger property portfolio, whatever it is. Now we've gone to information parity, where everything's available via the World Wide Web, to information overload now with AI, and you don't even know what the heck is real or not. And so the opportunity is to be the advisor that has vetted out that information on a macroeconomic level, understood what makes the difference in your local markets, and then you pair that with experience because you're in the marketplace doing deals and you have anecdotal evidence. Now you've got something that somebody can actually look through the windshield instead of the rear view mirror on. And that is what I have been trying to do in regards to helping clients and ourselves make informed decisions in commercial real estate. So I know that's a big roundabout way to say that I help people buy, invest, and sell in commercial real estate in Kansas City.
That's great. So we were talking right before we came on about my Airbnb, which that's a story in and of itself. But I believe you told me that you have a portfolio of Airbnbs as well. How do you optimize that?
Yeah. So on the short-term rental side, we have 2 different properties. The first property being actual boutique hotels that have 15 to 20 rooms in them, right? And so they were old houses that were converted into these boutique art hotels. So those are very much managed like a bed and breakfast, okay? We use the listing platforms like Airbnb to drive traffic to them, but we manage them with a person on staff on site. So that is a little different. Now, I do have scattered site short-term rentals. And the way that we've been able to manage that from afar, frankly, is we have contracts with folks that do lawn, snow removal, except for when the snow removal gets too bad, Logan gets to go up with his big truck and shovel
Right.
and help out. Not too often, but laundry, obviously, and cleaning. Thankfully, our buildings, I've implemented washer and dryers even at our buildings. So our buildings are not one unit. They are the full property, mixed use properties. They have retail on the main level and we have residential on the top levels. Okay. And so I've been able to repurpose space in those buildings to allow those vendors to store their materials and to do the laundry on site, right, while they're cleaning. And so we've streamlined that process. And additionally, I have a partner on those projects, on 2 of those projects, and he manages the communication and the bookings with the guests. Him and his wife actually just really enjoy doing that. As it's so important with short-term rentals to have 5-star ratings and be a super host and all of these things. And
Yep.
The Stash Cast is brought to you by Needle. What if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? With Needle, you can. Check it out at needle.us to learn more.
we tried to outsource that in the past. That didn't work so well. And so people
Same.
actually, they want to have a person that they
Yep.
can call and talk to. And so I think Airbnb specifically could be in some trouble. And here's why. I travel only 4 or 5 times a year, but I have 3 children under the ages of 6, and we do not stay in hotels. And as we have traveled the last 5 years on vacations to Florida and Arizona, mostly just those 2 states, because it's warm whenever it's cold here in Kansas City. But even going up to New York City and things like that, we will usually get a house. And I'll say that the level of the product that you get when you show up, the pictures were right when the property was renovated. So you go to this Arizona house and the whole property looks amazing on the pictures, and you've got ping pong and you've got mini putt-putt, and you show up and the turf is matted down and the ping pong table is broken.
Got a little wear on it.
Got a little wear on it. Additionally, many folks got into that short-term rental game, tried to implement third-party resources to really focus on the communication and took that human element out of it, which I don't think when you're paying what we pay when we travel, you should get an answer very quickly. So I don't know. I think that model is a little bit in trouble only because of the supply that is there. Also, it's under scrutiny in many municipalities in regards to codes and permits that you have to have. Even in a commercial building in Kansas City, we were required to go get short-term rental permits, which took us 6 to 9 months in a B32 neighborhood business zoned commercial building that has the permitted use for residential. So I see some headwinds in regards to that, but that's how we're managing it currently.
When I was a broker, I used to say that you live and die by your management, and you'd get these, and I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. You get out of town investors wanting to come in and hire a third party manager. And especially for smaller properties, it's really tough to find a good third party property manager that can do a good job with less than 100 units, really. And the reason for that is because you can't staff it, you can't put people on site, and you live and die by your management. So often churn in these smaller properties with out of town investors thinking, oh, it's so small, how can you lose? And I've seen it multiple times where you can lose very easily. But how this relates is I took the bait. I fell for it. I hired a large third-party short-term rental manager. They sold me a bill of goods, and I'm a salesperson. I love to be sold, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And I probably gave them 60 days, and they booked one night. And
Wow.
it got to a point where I was like, guys, I'll give you 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to book one reservation across 2 rentals that I have, two Airbnbs. And those 2 weeks came and went and nothing. And, and I talked to the rep that I was working with, and I was like, what would you do if you were me? You guys you hold yourselves up to be experts, the best in the business, this and that, but you haven't generated any revenue. What would you do if you were me? He's like, I get it, man. I'm sorry. Lots of excuses. So I took it back the next day, put it up on Airbnb and VRBO, and I immediately got 5 reservations. And I was screenshotting it. Like the first one, I just sent it to him, but then I got 4 more in a row. And I was like, I feel like you guys are just fucking with me.
Yeah.
What's going on? So
Did you ever figure out what was going on?
what I think happened is that what happens with any large organization is that there's just complacency.
Mm.
The founder
Yeah.
who starts it is no longer hands-on. It's just not practical to be involved in everything. So the magic, the shine that was there in the beginning is no longer there. And then you just hire people who are just doing it for a fee and they don't care as much. And I'm not demeaning anybody, but it's very different when it's your own property versus, yeah, I'm just doing it for a fee for somebody else. It doesn't matter to me. And they're like, our interests are aligned because we only get paid if you do. I was like, you haven't. So that's a whole long thing, but that's how they're doing.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah. I think we talked a little bit. We did talk a little bit, but it was a couple of months ago, but I was LinkedIn stalking you, and you've got a philosophy with launching deals where you not just listing them, launching them. Why don't you speak a little bit more about that and how your process differs from the traditional brokerage where, hey, we're going to put it out, have a call for offers, and then, try and create an auction environment.
Absolutely. So, I saw a few trends, and one of the things that I like to always say is that the trend is your friend. And one of the trends that I saw was that buyers of commercial real estate continue to become younger and younger. And where are they operating at? Where are they spending their time at? Where's the ideal customer profile spending their time on? And I think that the traditional model of good old boys, hey, I'm going to call you, we're going to sell this real estate to you, is still good. And that is still a fundamental of commercial real estate. However, if you are in a niche, you're in a secondary market like Kansas City, right? We have 2.5 million people in our MSA. We have population growth right around 1% every single year. So that means 20 to 25,000 people moving here. Rent growth is between 3 and 4% on the multifamily side. We're seeing 8 to 12 on retail, 8 to 12 on industrial. So fundamentals are strong, but not a lot of people know about Kansas City. You have to be able to attract new capital into those secondary markets. There's a big map right behind me, right?
Yeah.
And Kansas City is right there where my finger is, right? And that is a state line, meaning we are on the state line of Kansas and Missouri. So now I have to educate what are the differences between being in Johnson County, Kansas versus Wyandotte County, Kansas versus Jackson County, Missouri versus Clay County, Missouri. And we have 18 different municipalities that touch the Kansas City MSA. That being said, there's different demand drivers for each one of those. And so when somebody says Kansas City, I ask what area of Kansas City, because believe it or not, from a square mileage standpoint, Kansas City is the same size as Manhattan, believe it or not, about 300 to 400 square miles. But guess what? Kansas City, Missouri proper, has 500,000 people that live in it. I don't know how many live in Manhattan, but it's a lot more than that, right? But in this big MSA, this big 300 square miles, we've got 2.5 million people. Additionally, we're seeing growth on the east side and the west side of the state line. West out to DeSoto, Kansas, where Panasonic is putting a $4 billion, or has put a $4 billion EV plant, and now data centers are going in. Out east, where Lee Summit is, the growth is unbelievable because of the school systems and the affordability complexes that you have there. North of the river, our brand new airport, more data centers, more affordability, right? And so I saw an opportunity to say, let's talk about how to launch a real estate deal like a product instead of listing it and hoping that somebody comes. What would we do differently? What would Steve Jobs do if he was launching commercial real estate project? We obviously have to underwrite that project if it's an investment sale. We have to know this story, and we have to craft this story and nail this story. So that means you need to tell that story to many people that don't know Kansas City, they don't know the market, they don't know the asset, and they don't know you. So those four things you have to be able to clearly communicate in a concise and compelling way. That's the first start, is just getting that story. And that has to be believable, right? It has to attract people, but it also has to be believable. So that's number one, is you're a storyteller. After the storytelling, you need to create the market. So where are the ideal customer profiles spending their time? We have to create this market. That's what we do. We are marketers. Our product is commercial real estate, bricks and mortar and spaces, right? In buildings and land. And so we have to craft the market and create that market, craft the story, create the market. And now we have to deliver that message. And that's where the launching really comes into play, which is, okay, typically it goes up on listing platforms or it goes out to an email list. You have an offering memorandum, you have your flyer, and you're seeing who's interested. That's fine. That's table stakes. What I thought was, okay, let me do a few things differently. Number one, let me educate my market on LinkedIn and on social media about this asset class. I'm not going to mention the property. I'm not going to talk about the property. I'm just going to talk about the asset class. All right, boom, 15, 20,000 impressions, right? I've got many people interested in the asset class. I'm educating about it. The second one, boom, geographic location of that specific asset. Still not mentioning the asset class. All right, so this submarket of Johnson County in Lenexa, Kansas, here are the demand drivers. Here's what's going on. All right. LinkedIn post, social media post number 3, introduce the asset, right? Hey, here's an opportunity that fit that asset class and that geographic location. All right. General, broad. 4th post, all about the story, all about the details. Through that, we are crafting the opportunity for people to raise their hand and say, I am interested in learning more. If that is the case, here's where you need to go, right? Additionally, through the podcast, through the newsletter, we will actually bring the property and do a live presentation. We will invite everyone who is engaged with those social media posts to that live presentation to come ask questions. We are your resource here. We are pitching a brokerage opportunity, an acquisition opportunity live on LinkedIn, on YouTube to you, where you can ask questions to us live, right? Never seen that done before. So that's a big part of the launch process. After that is completed, that is now crafted into a newsletter that goes out to 10,000 people on the Constant Contact and 9,000 people on LinkedIn. It has the text version of the newsletter, but also if you want to watch the video, here's the video. Now that is out there into the marketplace as well, and that is living on Apple and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all of the places and YouTube. From that 2 to 3 week process, we have now launched. And out of that launch, we typically get 25 to 30,000 targeted views on that asset. The goal is to then get 10% of them to ask for more information, right? 5 to 10%. 5 to 10% now go to a landing page where they can get their contact information and talk to us. That typically generates about 150 to 200 leads, depending on the asset class and the location. Now, phase 2 of the Spotlight strategy comes. Phase 2 is relentless follow-up, stealing some stuff from Tim Grover. We do not stop until we get a no from every single person. And what I have shown in my case studies this year, I have them. I can share them. I do share them. They're on LinkedIn, on my newsletter. That every deal that we have launched through that process is either now sold, under contract, or negotiating an LOI. The last 4 weeks, we have 99 CAs signed on the projects. And these are not big, sexy multifamily projects that everyone wants to buy. We're talking vacant land for single family home subdivisions, vacant skilled nursing facilities that need $5 million worth of work, multifamily properties in small tertiary markets, failed boutique hotel development projects that need somebody to finish them, like really tough deals that need to go find the needles in the haystack. So, Stash, you can ask any questions about that, but I think I gave a good overview of kind of the 2 phases of our Spotlight strategy.
I think that's really slick, and it makes a lot of sense because in fact, and I feel like I feel like a lot of commercial real estate brokers get hung up on we're in, they think that they're investment bankers. We're in the capital advisory business, but
Mm,
in fact, that's part of it. That's part of the equation, but you are a marketer.
yeah.
Um, and that's what you are first. And you're marketing an investment opportunity. So I really like what you said about the first post is about the submarket and demand drivers, what's going on there. What was the second one?
Yeah, the first post is actually about the asset class and just
Okay.
educating any tailwinds or headwinds, not getting away from the headwinds, right? If all you do is talk about the good, then somebody's not going to believe you, right? You have to realize that there are always going to be challenges, right? For office, sure, there's big opportunities, but there's huge tailwinds or headwinds as well. And so it's really about the asset class and education around that first, then the submarket, then we're teasing out the overview and then telling the story.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I like how you use the podcast, which is something I guess I never thought of, to tell the story of the deal.
Mhm.
And it makes sense because, and I like how you're doing it live and you're saying, okay, here is the opportunity. You probably go through the underwriting and
Yes.
then you have the video of it, which is screen share. And then you're like, here's the income, the expenses, here's why we came up with these assumptions. And then essentially you've shortcutted that conversation of the first time you get somebody on the phone, you have the
Mhm.
whole underwriting and deal. So no, we've already done that. And in fact, you've already gotten that messaging.
That's exactly right. Yes, it's
That's
more of an
great.
efficiency play.
Yeah.
And the three-part framework when we're pitching any deal is upside potential, downside mitigation, and unseen benefits. That's the three-part that we always go through. Is just understanding those three components of the project is what someone needs to actually make a decision. And so many people say, I need more time to make a decision. Hormozy talks about time is not a factor in making decision. Information is. And so we do a really good job of ensuring that any question that a buyer could have, we have the information on, right? We do not want to be stumped by a buyer, right? So for example, just listed a 18 unit multifamily property and it is 2020's build. It was a part of a larger development with condos in that development. So the builders actually put the multifamily properties into the HOA, which is a big challenge for a new buyer.
Yeah.
If you read the fine print, it doesn't apply to the multifamily properties. However, the 36-page bylaws, we now have to break down and we have to showcase here's what this applies to. It's a part of this community, but really the only thing it talks about is common areas. There are no common areas on the multifamily property. So we took that bylaw document, we uploaded it to our super agent and said, summarize this for us. We took that information, we put it over into Gamma, which put a visual presentation together now that any buyer can just go through 3 to 4 pages instead of having to read 36 pages of bylaws. I took that Gamma presentation, the summary, and I went to the property manager and said, please review this for accuracy and for if anything that I missed. A few changes were made, and now that is not a hiccup when we get on a phone call with somebody. So, hey, have
Hmm.
you reviewed the overview? If not, do that because it clears up all of your questions. Because when we
Right.
want to talk with the potential buyer, the last thing we want is one thing being stuck in their head to say, I'm uncertain about that. Now that they're uncertain about that, they're uncertain about everything on the real estate
Sure.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like your approach because, like I said, commercial real estate, especially even I think when I got started, which was back in 2008, and I really started to get, I didn't really start to get traction until 2013. It was still a closed system where I feel like the mentality was, I'm not going to tell you anything because I worked hard to glean this information, and if I tell you're going to be able to use it. It was almost like, let me see if I can get one over on you. the rise of the internet and really the internet's expansion of capability, I think, is what has brought on the ability for somebody like yourself to be able to do what you're doing and to approach the brokerage practice in a different way. And cheers to you for being able to recognize that and take advantage of that.
Yeah.
I think that's really
I think that for me, I looked at it from a time perspective, and I tried to figure out, after doing $400 million worth of real estate over the last 7 years, I tried to figure out, where did deals blow up? And it was usually when somebody didn't have the information or they'd stopped losing the trust, right? And so what we try to do is be transparent about the challenges. And the last thing I'd like to do is get a deal tied up and then have something come up that we could have avoided early on in the process that we did avoid, and now it's causing an issue because now we've wasted people's time, we've wasted their capital and their effort. And now the magnitude of that decision is so much larger than it could have been just, here's the document that you need to review before going under contract. If that's a no-go, do not do this deal. You have to have the confidence that your process and your ability allows you to continue to find the next right buyer. And I think that's the move from this scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset. But that's the type of business that we want to try to operate in.
And if in the previous model where, let me see if I can, which I will just say, I never practiced as though, let me see if I can get one over on you. But if you're not an expert in a deal and somebody stumps you with a question, and then there's always a classic, let me get back to you on that. But being prepared up front is much better than, hey, let me get back to you, because that steals momentum. But if there is a misstep, that leads to an erosion of trust, which is so much harder to get back because it's so hard to earn in the first place.
That's right.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. How does that go over with, or I guess maybe the better question is, what is your ICP when you're out there prospecting for a new business?
Yeah. I just had Alan Buchanan on my podcast, and he talks about the qualify process. And the qualify process is, you've got to have a quantitative need to be able to do something. And then the U is urgency. Okay. And then you have to, and then the Y, just going all the way through down to the bottom, is yearning. Why? What is the motivation? So I'm always figuring out, what's the quantitative need? What do you need to get out of this? What's the urgency? And what's the yearning and the reason behind you're doing this? So for me, it's not necessarily, since I have 6 people on my team that all have specialties, my focus is try to go find somebody who has passed those 3 kind of filters in regards to, they want to transact, right? Because if somebody doesn't want to transact, they'll always find a way to blow up a deal. And so I think qualifying that process and that person and that owner in regards to the quantitative need, the urgency, and the yearning is my thought process when I'm out there talking to people and just listening, right? So I listen to a lot of life events. When is debt coming up due? How long have you owned this property? So those things for me, if somebody says, I'm just interested in testing the market, there's plenty of other people out there that will test the market for you. I'm not interested.
Don't waste my time. Yeah.
I have to be rigorous in regards to the type of projects that I work on. We, as salespeople in this industry, do a very terrible job of giving ourselves an hourly rate that is truly what we're worth, right? And so I have a process that I go down all the time and say, is this a $10, $100, $1,000, or $10,000 an hour task? And I try to spend most of my time doing $1,000 and $10,000 an hour tasks. The other things I try to eliminate, delegate, or remove completely, right? Eliminate, delegate, and automate. Sorry, that's the third part. Eliminate, delegate, and automate. Automation being very interesting right now. Trying to learn a lot from, shout out to Topher Stevenson, CREAI Studio. I'm just learning so much in regards to AI and how to automate. So I'm not manually doing things all the time. But the other parts are eliminating those things that are wasting my time, and then delegating to my team and having the trust and actually moving into a leadership position on some of these things, saying, hey, this is your responsibility, right? I'm a control freak, and so I have to be cognizant of that. Now, control freaks can be very successful because they are very detail oriented and make sure things get done. But you also can run a lot of people off if you're micromanaging. So there's a fine balance between that. So that'd be my response to that, is understanding what you're worth, focusing on those profit producing activities, ensuring everything else is eliminated, automated, or delegated so that you can operate in your sweet spot.
That's great. Are you using any, I'm leading you into a shameless plug for Needle, but are you using any smart or AI prospecting solutions?
Right now, most of the deals that I am working on come from two places. First place is in referral. So somebody that I've transacted with, they've said, hey, I'm interested in you talking to this person to help them as well. I had a good experience. That's my number one source of business. Number two is not from automated or doing any type of prospecting like that. It's from proof stacking. So taking the projects that I successfully completed, showing the marketplace how the sausage was made. So when I close a deal, case study goes out, very detailed case study of exactly what was done, the numbers, the figures behind each listing platform, where the buyer came from, how many days on the market, how many offers, how many tours, what concessions were made, here's what we closed on. Again, transparency. And that brings me other opportunities. Then that deal is closed. We have an omnichannel approach to the similar property owners in that specific area. We need to deliver them physical mail. We need to be on their properties, talking to them, physically going to them. Then we need to have digital communication via phones and text messages. Now, I do not have anything at this point saying, hey, that strip center down the street has some debt coming due. You guys should target that person. That would be something that would be wonderful for our process.
Let me tell you, I have a solution for the multifamily space that essentially what we've done. So I came up making hundreds of thousands of cold calls over my career, right?
Yeah.
And cold calls eventually turn into warm calls, but you want to make sure that you're adding value on each call, right? But if you've got 10 different properties, 20 different properties, I can't go down the list and be like, how's it going with this one? What are your plans for this one? It's
Right.
redundant, it's annoying, and it's not going to work. It's not practical. And so we had this system at the time, and it had this button called match buyers, and you could hit a button. It would give you all the buyers that, at least in your database, said that they had acquisition criteria that fit this opportunity. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if you could have that for sellers? So the hypothesis was, what if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? And so that's what we set out to do. And we've found that we can. Some of our models, a new one that we're going to be rolling out here probably within the next couple of weeks, is up to 90% accurate with, I think, 50% recall. So one of two properties that we identify is going to sell.
Wow.
And right now, it's specifically focused on multifamily. We do have plans to expand into the other product types, but we're looking at things like debt maturities are a dead giveaway. And like you
Sure.
said earlier, that's table stakes for this. But it's looking at things like, how often does this given owner tend to transact? What's their hold period? How often do assets like this, size, vintage, rating, ABC, how often do these tend to transact in the market and then even in the particular submarket? Applying all these variables to the properties and calling them forward and saying, these are the ones that we think are most likely to transact. So it gives you, the broker, the ability to go out and get in front of it before your competitor does. And oftentimes, I'm not sure if you've heard it, but I've definitely heard it. Hey, Stash, I appreciate it. You're out there hustling. So-and-so sold it to us. So if we're going to sell it, we've got to sell it back out through them. But if you bring us an offer,
Mm.
we don't have any allegiance essentially in the off market. And I heard that so many times, and it just it frustrated me so much because it's like I'm hustling, right? Like I'm trying to bring you deals. I'm trying to add value to the conversations. And we also have a buyer matching algorithm that says, here are the buyers that we think are most likely to show interest in the property. What we're not doing is saying, hey, here's what we think it's worth too. I think that's on our roadmap, but that's property's only worth what a buyer and seller are willing to transact at. So it's all
Yeah.
about price and terms in that case.
Yeah. You know, the moment that you have more product types, I do very little multifamily brokerage only because it is a red ocean. I try to play in blue oceans.
Sure.
But we still have multifamily properties. But retail, industrial, office, if you can crack that code, Stash, man, I would be very excited about that. 100%. The other thing I will say, started using a data system as well as a listing platform called Revere, and Revere is formerly RCM. I think it's
Revere was a new platform that Lightbox, who owns RCM, bought.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your experience with Revere?
It's been great so far. And it's really good for specific asset classes. The deliverability and the way that you market your property is a little goofy. You have to email people, and that's okay. And there's triggers based off of that. But the data inside of that and the conversations that we have had has been absolutely fantastic. It's driven our business for the last 3 months. Can't speak highly enough about them. I can only imagine how valuable something like Needle would be to that group and vice versa. Being able to have that database of buyers, they've already got a lot of green flags that say, we're active, this is what we're looking for. Maybe they buy you. I don't know.
Yeah. I know a couple of guys over there. I'll reach back out. Interesting. So I guess what are some of your, we talked a little bit about your systems, but what are some of the metrics that you're shooting for, some of your non-negotiables?
Yeah.
For me, it was make sure you can have 10 conversations a day, 50 a week, 2 new business appointments a week. And I knew that if I did that as a minimum, that, everything, the rest would take care of itself. So what do you focus on?
Yeah. I've been flirting with this idea of GBO, and this is the anatomy of an outstanding day. It stemmed from 3 different, I think, producers of content. First one being Jesse Itzler. Jesse Itzler and Chad Wright. I ran a ultra marathon earlier this year. And so I was listening to Jesse Itzler and Chad Wright a lot because they both run very long distances. And Chad Wright has something that says if somebody asks him how he's doing, specifically during the race, there's only one response. And that response is, I'm outstanding. What did I say to you when you asked me how I'm doing today, earlier before we were on the call?
Outstanding. Yeah.
Outstanding. So that's number 1. So this is where this idea came from, the anatomy of an outstanding day. Number 2 was Patrick Bet-David, just an incredible entrepreneur.
Yeah,
PBD.
He's great.
He gives so much good information out there. And he was talking about how to really score your days as an entrepreneur. And I heard him talking through this idea of good, bad, and average, right? Or GBO, good, bad, and outstanding. Sorry. What is it a good day? What is a bad day? And what's an outstanding day? And then the third one was Alex Hormozy talking about focus. And instead of goals, he focuses on creating hypothesis. What's the problem that you're trying to solve for? What are the inputs? How do you think you're going to solve it? What are the outputs? What are you trying to get from that? Go test it. Okay, so combining those 3 things, I've come up with this idea of GBO, which is, hey, if you finish the day and you're like, man, that was a good day. What happened? Or that was a bad day. What happened? Or man, that was an outstanding day. What happened? So for me personally, I know that I need to have 5 meaningful conversations per day, meaning I've engaged with somebody that wants to buy, sell, or invest commercial real estate in the states that I work in. Does it take me 100 cold calls to get there? Fine. Does it take me responding to 50 emails? Fine. I do not care about tracking the inputs anymore. in regards to what needs to be done, because I'm into a point where my career where I have more inbound than I do have to go outbound. When I first got started, it was 265 cold calls per day, every single day, 265 with an old analog phone, no speed dialer. That was me pushing the numbers on a headset.
I had a headset. It would lift up the handle, and what's amazing is that my memory for phone numbers has decreased, but I used to have people's numbers just in my head.
That's right.
Some people I still do, but yeah.
And then also on top of that, I'm focused on having 2 revenue generating meetings per day. So I'm trying to get to 10 per week. What is a revenue generating meeting? From those meaningful conversations, have I been able to move one of them to the next step to talk about a proposal, which is my third key performance indicator on the leading side, which is I need 10 proposals per month out to property owners or on behalf of buyers. So that's a broker opinion of value. That's a letter of intent to purchase a property. That is working with a buyer that's inquired about my property and they're making an offer. Okay. So those 3 things are the only 3 things that I'm tracking on a regular basis. Obviously, we track sales closed and all of those things. And then every single deal has its own KPIs. But those are the 3 things that I'm doing from a leading indicator standpoint. And then every month I'm going back, reviewing how many did I have this month. I track that on a spreadsheet. And I can tell you that I've had over 1,000 meaningful conversations this year. I've had around 800 revenue generating meetings. And we have a commercial real estate pipeline, either under contract, listed, or letters of intent to be negotiated on right around $102 million right now.
That's great.
So that's what I do. And then it's staying extremely diligent and focused on that, right? Like I do not move out of this seat typically for 6 to 7 hours per day working on things. That is a strength that I have. I can sit here and I can get things done. I can be on calls and I can stay focused. That's my sweet spot. That's my strength. Not everybody can do that.
Desk.
I don't have a stand-up desk, but right behind here, you can't see it right here. That is a walking treadmill. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I see it.
So that walking treadmill allows me to get on phone calls and get my body moving.
Oh,
when it's nice outside and we don't have snow on the ground like we do right now, I'm outside walking around. And I might have a very rigorous morning routine that I've had for the last, good golly, 20 years. It's ingrained in me. It's a part of my identity that sets me up for success for the day.
What do you do?
Yeah. And I'm not a proponent of saying this is what everybody should do. Okay.
Sure. No.
My top talents from Strength Finders are discipline, focus, achiever, competition, and input. Okay. So this works for me. If I wasn't a collegiate athlete, I would have been in the military. So just keep that in mind. That is agenda, works for Logan. Okay. So that being said, I get up at 5 a.m. every single day. My Catholic faith is my number one thing in my life. And so I always start with praying, thanking God for another day, reading the Gospels. After that, I transition into a 12-minute methodology. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich gave us half the secret, which is, and you go read Think and Grow Rich, you'll hear it. But thoughts are things, and what your mind can conceive, you can achieve. Okay, Napoleon, how do we do that? John Mitchell wrote a book called The Missing Secret. And The Missing Secret basically says that 95% of our thoughts are subconscious. So 5% of what we're doing is actually conscious thought. So we need to reprogram and program our subconscious every single day. So he has a whole 12-minute methodology, The Missing Secret. Go read the book. He has a custom GPT that asks you questions, and you can build this out. So for over a year now, 12 minutes into my brain on my faith, family, fitness, and my future, I'm reprogramming the mind. And then boom, I'm downstairs, I'm at the gym, and I'm sweating it out. I'm a competitive Concept 2 rower. I'm doing the World Championships in February. I'm going for the 1-minute world record, and I work out. After that, I'm either in the sauna or the cold plunge, just something that I like to do. No reason that you need to do it. It's just I like doing hard things. Sauna's not really hard, let's get real, but the cold plunge is.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, shower, shave, get the kids off to school, drop them off, Then I go to church every single morning. So then I'm back with my faith. So from 8:15 to 9, I'm at church, and then I have a process through my Remarkable tablet. This is put you guys up on game. This Remarkable tablet has absolutely transformed my life. People are like, how do you track all of those things? I write it down. And then when I write it down, that is automatically synced to my phone. And now I have my notes everywhere. So I can show you 300 pages of daily notes in here that tracks a couple things. First part of that is I review the previous day. Second part is my gospel reflection. So many people read the gospel, and I'm not preaching here. You do you, okay? This has just been extremely important for me in my life. But if I read it at 5 a.m., I probably have forgotten by 9 a.m. what I read. And so I'm trying to go back, right? So I'm learning about how to integrate that into my life. Okay, after that, what are my 5 meaningful conversations that I'm having per day? Not every day I can sit down at 9 a.m. and have all 5. So it's okay. That points me in the right direction. I need to do some prospecting today. If I only have 2 on the schedule, I got to go get 3. After that is Andy Frisella's power list. So not a to-do list, a power list. So Gary Keller in his book, The One Thing, says, what's the one thing that if you get done makes everything else easier or unnecessary? So I write my power list down. So it's typically 3 things, and it's very deal focused. And then I have flex time on there. That's where my to-do list is. I don't hold myself accountable to getting all of those things done. But number 1 and 2 always have to get done for the day. And then I'm at the office knocking those things out. Try to keep my meetings somewhat limited until about lunchtime so I can get my deep work done. And then it's really customer facing, prospecting on the phone, on video, creating content, doing a podcast, doing something. That's how the day goes every single day.
I like it. That's incredibly powerful.
I have now seen the rewards of the consistency. This is something one of my mentors, I won't name him here because he likes to fly under the radar, super successful individual. I went and saw him in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you get on my LinkedIn, it'd be easy to find out who he is. Anyways, very successful real estate investor and developer. Lives on Camelback Mountain, if that tells you anything. So he told me, Logan, you need to be patient. And I said, what do you mean? You got to be impatient with your actions, impatient with your results. You are reaping the rewards of what you did 30, 60, 90, even sometimes 180 days ago. So I now know that if I'm having a good week, it's not because of what I did this week. It's because of the work that I did the last 30 to 60 to 90 days ago.
Sure. Yeah.
And if I can understand that, then it motivates and inspires me to have a good day today to ensure the delayed satisfaction and gratification and more of a stoic approach for the future allows me to reap those rewards, right? And so in a past life, I think I was an engineer. I might call myself like a sales engineer now, but like an engineer in the sense that everything in my life, like when I got cut from the NFL, I was 335 pounds at the NFL Combine. Less than 6 months later, I was 12% body fat and 219 pounds. I walked by some of my friends that have known me for 5 years, and they didn't even recognize me. And I said, hey, guys. And they looked at me. They're like, what the heck is that? That's Logan Freeman. People I haven't seen since COVID saw me last night at an event, and they're like, what have you been doing?
Yeah.
But it was because of the work that I was doing 30, 60, 90 days ago, right? What did I eat? What did I do? So everything to me is somewhat of an equation, and I'm obsessed with trying to figure out what inputs do I need to change to get the outputs that I'm looking for to remove friction in my life so that everything runs smoother. Grant Cardone said something to me, and Grant Cardone, take him or leave him, 10X Rule is still one of my favorite books, but he said in that book, if you get in a car wreck and it wasn't your fault, you need to take ownership of that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, what if you would have taken a different street or left 15 minutes earlier so you didn't have to take that shortcut and you could have taken the longer route that was a little bit safer, right? Those are all things that you can think about. And so I'm trying to remove friction in my life so that I can continue to operate at this high level. What I see happen is one part of somebody's life is pulling them down so much that they feel like they can't get ahead in another area of their life. And then they start making changes in that area of life where they're actually crushing it, but there's one thing that's pulling them back, that's causing the friction in their life to not see the results in the other area. And that's when people get in these circular references of just going around and around. I can't break out. I can't break out. So I'm eliminating those issues by reducing my friction in specific areas of my life, my controllables, right? Tim Grover says, manage the controllables so you can, or he says, control the controllables so you can manage the uncontrollables, right? We can't tell what's going to happen, but we can't control the controllables. And so that's all about asymmetrical bets. Graham Weaver is a hedge fund guy, fantastic speaker. I think he's out in Stanford. But Graham Weaver changed my life this year when he said, all I do is try to take as many asymmetrical bets that I can. What the hell's an asymmetrical bet, Graham? So I'm trying to make decisions that have unlimited upside and very limited downside. Now that is a unique way to think about running your life on. So my morning routine are all built in with asymmetrical bets. If you look at my morning routine, there's very little downside what I'm doing from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. So I've just controlled 4 hours and made many asymmetrical bets so that I can go control the rest of the day or manage the rest of the day because it's uncontrollable. And that's the success secret that I think people have to figure out.
That's powerful, man. That's admirable. It's amazing. I'm proud of you.
It's a daily grind, right? And a daily
100%.
struggle.
Yeah.
But I'm getting better as the time goes. I also have an absolutely incredible wife that holds me very accountable and keeps me grounded on a regular basis. And I think that's another component that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah. Your partner is a very important choice for who you align with.
One might say the most important choice. And
One might, yeah.
I've heard PBD talk about that quite a bit. And he was scheduled to get married when he was 23 years old and they were not ready. And the one question he asked was, would you let your future daughter marry you right now? And I know it's a little weird to think about, but like the person that you are. And the answer to him was no. No. And so they didn't get married. And 5 years later, he found his love of his life and he's been with her ever since. So those are things. And I have a lot of people saying, how did you and your wife meet? We've been married for 8 years, 3 kids, working on 4th. And I said, look, I had to become the man that would attract that type of person into my life, right? So there's a lot of things that I needed to change about myself to be able to attract that woman into my life, who has now raised my standards tenfold, 100-fold. And that's an extremely important decision.
That's amazing. I feel like this is a good place to wrap. If somebody's interested in getting in touch with you about Kansas City or anything else that we've talked about today, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Daily posting over on LinkedIn. You can follow Mr. Kansas City, Logan Freeman. Just pushed over 35,000 followers over there. I was a top voice for 9 months and got that pulled, I think, because of some of my weekend posts on Sundays, but that is a risk that I was willing to take, and that's what I'm here for anyway. So love LinkedIn, love the platform. You can find me there. My newsletter has 9,000 followers on that now. That's where I speak about commercial real estate, what's going on in the market, macroeconomic, and then in Kansas City as well. So love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn.
It's awesome, man. And really appreciate your time today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Stash.
All right. Thank you.
That's it for the Stash Cast. Subscribe, share, and stay ahead in commercial real estate and prop tech. See you next time.